Welcome back to Brianna and her coffee. I'm Brianna. This is her coffee. I think I like that one because it kind of just came to me in that last video and feels right. Feels right. Anyways, on my last video, I talked about the enneagram and hardly scratched the surface of what the enneagram even is, and just talked a little bit about it. So if you don't already know what it is, you haven't watched that video or whatever, you can go back and watch that. Anyways, so today I want to talk about my journey of figuring out that I am what I am. So before I spill the beans and I tell you the big news of my number, let me first tell you where I started. So like I said in the last video, I started learning about the enneagram a year and a half ago. Andrew, my husband, and I were living up north in Northern California. He was working, I wasn't, and therefore just had all this time on my hands. And I got super over just kind of feeling like I was on vacation. For about a week, it felt awesome. But then after that week, I got really bored and I was like, all right, I need to do something. So I started watching documentaries, and somewhere along the way, I don't even remember how, but I stumbled upon the enneagram. And I was like, this is fascinating. And so I watched endless videos on it, documentaries, listened to podcasts, researched it, read a bunch of books, and I don't think I was even going from a perspective of which one am I. I was kind of just super into it without thinking that way. And then I was telling a friend about it. Is that a spaceship? What is happening? They're cutting some palm trees right outside my window. I hope you can hear me, otherwise this is gonna be so annoying. I'm back. I don't remember where I left off. Maybe this will help me. Coffee helps everything. It's not there yet. Got it. It was a second sip. Okay. I remember. I was sharing with one of my friends about how I think it's really cool and how I'm getting into it or whatever. And they were like, oh, what number are you? I'm like, oh, I guess I don't really know yet. I'm still playing around with it. And they're like, oh, I think you're a 4. You should check out a 4. And so I did, and I before that, I took a test. I took one of the online tests, and it told me I was a 2. And I right away was like, I'm not a 2. I can be helpful, I can be selfless, but the thing about the 2 is the helper. But the thing about them is specifically, do you hear that beeping out there? I'm just trying to have a cozy afternoon with all of my friends, all 4 of you, and my coffee, and my sweater, and my fuzzy socks. We're really killing the vibe. Anyways, excuse me. I took a test, it told me I was a 2. The thing about a 2 is they love to help people, but the thing is, their motivation behind that, or the reason they love to help people, is because they actually find validation or identity in being needed or wanted. And I don't. I actually feel a sense of relief, to be honest, if I don't feel needed for a second. It feels nice. That's the opposite of a 2's mindset. So I knew for a fact I wasn't a 2. And then my friend was like, oh, maybe you're a 4. I think you're a 4. And at this point in time, even though I had done a bunch of research and stuff, I still didn't know enough about it to know that because they see me in a certain way that they can tell me I'm a type. And I was like, maybe he's right. And so I started looking in the 4, and I found a lot of things about the 4 that I could relate to. And a lot of things that I didn't relate to, but I thought, yeah, but are you gonna 100% relate to any number? You're a complex human. Of course, you're gonna probably take some from some, but not all of any. You know what I mean? Anyways, so I just hardly looked elsewhere. Once he said that, I was like, oh, I must be a 4. And I went with it for the next year, at least. I was like, that's it, I'm a 4, blah, 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 blah. And then one day, I don't remember what triggered it or what, but I was probably listening to a podcast, as I tend to do on my drives. I tend to listen to an Enneagram podcast. I was probably listening to one, and it brought something up where I was like, you know what? I really don't think I'm a 4. I was listening to one where they interview a bunch of different people who are different numbers. And I was like, I just am not like any of these people. And I understand not all 4s are going to look alike. And I get that. But to a point where I'm like, I don't even relate to anything they're saying or the way they're answering these questions. Maybe I'm something different. And I was looking up some different stuff. And I found out that a common mistype, especially for women who are 5s, will mistype as a 4. Particularly because women are just more prone to emotion, and 4s tend to be in tune with their emotions. Not that they're super emotional, like they're crying all the time. They're just in tune with what they're feeling, and they're not afraid to feel those things. Anyway, so then I was like, oh, 5, that must be it. And so I started looking into the 5, and same thing with the 4. There was tons of it that I related to, but then again, a lot that I didn't. Like 5s are energy preservers. I'm a big energy preserver, it seems like. And they love knowledge. I think knowledge is really cool. I'm a teacher. Like, I love learning, and I love teaching and instilling a like excitement for learning in other people. But then I realized the motive behind a 5 wanting to have knowledge is to feel more secure. It's like for security's sake. So again, it's all about why you do what you do, not what you do. And that's what got me on the 5. I was just looking at what I was doing, not why I was doing what I was doing. So once that kind of clicked, I'm like, no, I really don't think I'm a 5, because I don't. For example, 5s would hate to sit in a circle of a group of people who are having a conversation about something that they know nothing about. If that were the case, the 5 would sit there in silence, waiting for a safe moment to like leave and Google what they're talking about. Or that night they go home and they learn everything about that they need to know. So the next time they talk about it, they can like have all the information. I don't do that. Like they're almost really afraid of looking like an idiot. I don't enjoy looking like an idiot. Don't get me wrong. But I'm not afraid to let people know I have no idea what they're talking about, or ask questions, or, you know, sound stupid for a minute for the sake of learning it. Although I really don't like to look like an idiot. So I think part of that drew me into it, and then part of it was like, no, but that's not really fully me. And different 5s in the world are like, oh, Albert Einstein's a 5 probably, and you know, Steve Jobs, I don't know, whatever. Those inventor science guys that are like, and girls, that are like very intelligent and just in their space and discovering something, like going so in depth of knowledge that they have to figure it out. I don't do that. Like I'm fascinated with different things and I'll learn all about it, but I'm not gonna dive so far into it that I'm gonna end up like inventing something about something. I get over it. I get pretty bored after researching a lot of it. Very recently, also I'm telling you all of this because none of my friends nor my husband will listen to me talk about this anymore, because it's been a 1.5-year journey, like I said, and they're all over me talking about how I'm this number. No, I'm not. I'm this number. No, I'm not. And honestly, I'm tired of saying it. Also, it's like, I thought I was, and think I am, very self-aware. So it's kind of embarrassing to say I thought I was such a different number than I am. Whatever. It's not embarrassing, but it is, just because then it's like, oh, you don't even know who you are. I'm like, no, I know who I am. I just, whatever. And another thing everyone keeps saying is like, well, why do you care so much about what number you are? Why does it matter so much? Like, I guess it doesn't matter that much. It's just, first of all, it's fun for me and I want to know. And I'm diving so much into this information that when I'm trying to learn about myself and my world around me and the people's world around me, like I want to be accurate and truthful in that and be able to know all the things about like how I am affected and how I affect. So that's why. Anyways. So recently, that's what it was. Where's my book? My other book. It's over there. It's fine. I started reading a book called The Path Between Us, and it's talking about the Enneagram specifically in context with relationships, which is really cool because I'm married and so I'm in a relationship. I also have friends and therefore I have plenty of relationships in my life. So I thought it would be cool. The first chapter is about an 8. I started reading the 8s in relationships. I think I was literally 2 pages in and I put the book down and I was like, oh my gosh. How in the world, after all the research I have done, the books I've read, the podcasts and whatever, did it take me this long to realize that I am a freaking 8? It's ridiculous. It's so ridiculous. I think there's a lot to why, actually. Part of it is my husband is an 8. And so every time I'm reading a book or I'm listening to a podcast about an 8 or like researching about an 8, I'm always thinking in context of him. So I didn't really take the place of like, oh, could I fit into that? I was just thinking of him and how can I learn more about Andrew without thinking the possibility of me being that. And I would read it and think like, oh wow, you were definitely talking to myself. Is that weird? Do you guys talk to yourself? Of course you do. Anyways, I was like, whoa, you were for sure an 8 when you were a kid. But your number doesn't change. You're like you change and you like look differently through seasons and whatever, but your number is always your number. So to say I was an 8 as a kid is like such a funny thing to me that I would say that all the time. Anyways, and also my husband's an 8 and 2 of my friends are 8s as well. And people would always tell them like, oh, you're such an 8, blah, 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 blah. And of course, these people don't know anything about the Enneagram and hate it. Like the 8s that people are telling them that they're 8s, so they don't even know. They're like, oh, I am, okay. You know, and they like don't want to hear more about it kind of thing. And no one was saying that to me, like, oh, you're such an 8. And so I just figured like, oh, I'm, you know, must not be an 8. Which again is going against everything I believe about the Enneagram, that I'm not supposed to let other people tell me what I am or what I am not. But whatever, I did, okay? So sue me, all right? No, don't sue me, please. Okay. Anyways, so I just came to this realization. I'm like, you're so silly. You're like, this is so obvious. And one thing that triggered it also is that Andrew, my very blunt husband who loves and appreciates communication that's straightforward and blunt and like, you know, doesn't beat around the bush and stuff, has brought to my attention that my tone can be a little bit too blunt sometimes. And I'm like, man, if my 8 husband thinks that I'm too blunt, that's a pretty good sign that I'm too blunt. And also that I'm probably an 8. It's crazy. This is just crazy. I'm telling you. Whoa. Man, life, man, am I right? So you might be thinking, well, how in the world did you go from being fully convinced you were one number to now being fully convinced you're another number? Listen to this. I had a little bit of a revelation where, again, it's one of those things that I feel silly for not realizing earlier, but whatever, is that I am an 8, and the number that an 8 goes to in stress is a 5. Does that make sense? You might not be as mind blown as me, but oh my gosh, I was like, it all makes sense. All the pieces have been put together. I was so happy with that revelation. I mean, I knew that an 8 goes to a 5 in stress. I just hadn't thought about it in depth before because I didn't feel like I had to like think about that or consider it. But listen, for the last few years of my life, honestly, I've been in kind of stressful situations. Like my last 2 years of college were stressful for me and just like a different environment and scenario than I would call a secure or like just not, it wasn't an environment where I felt like my full confident self. And then after college, I went to ministry school for a year and that was awesome, but there was a lot happening like in my personal life and just the day-to-day being there wasn't super easy. I was in a house with 5 other, like a small house with 5 other girls I didn't know and people around all the time. Like I never could be alone. So I think in And then my first year, and then I got married. In my first year of marriage, I was finishing my teaching credential and doing like student teaching and a lot of school and stuff. So I feel like within that's 4 years right there. So the last 4 years, I feel like I kind of resembled or reflected a lot of what a 5 looks like, because I kind of took a hermit stance. And 5s tend to do that in certain times and seasons. Like I just needed my alone time all the time. Anyways, I was just kind of a hermit and like reflected a lot of what 5 looks like. And now recently I've noticed I'm like wanting to hang out with friends more and more, like more consistently, and be with family and just be surrounded by people more consistently than the last few years, because I used to, like, honestly, I used to just think Andrew's really social and I'm not. This is going to be a challenge. And now I'm like, I think I was just stressed out like for years. And now I'm not. And I'm doing awesome. I'm like living the dream. Not that it's necessarily circumstances that we should let affect those things, but anyways, it is what it is, right? And in my life right now, I'm just feeling really great. And so I'm seeing more and more of the 8 come out. Isn't that funny? Oh man, life. Am I right? So there's a lot more about why I believe I'm an 8, more than just those couple things I mentioned. But I just don't feel like trying to convince people watching that I'm an 8 by like listing off those things. If you're interested, you can ask me more about what I think makes me an 8. But otherwise, like, just take my word for it. Okay? Okay.